Well, we're starting out this episode with some really good news. Well, two things, really good news. First, I get to have Kimberly Warner back on the Holistically Speaking podcast after close to 5 years, even though we've talked since, but this is like amazing that you're here. And secondly, Kimberly Warner, who has a new book coming out called Unfixed that we're going to talk all about. Your book just got editor's pick with Publishers Weekly. I think that's a great way to start out this episode.
It's a great way to start off the year.
It definitely is.
Yeah. I lost a lot of sleep the first night.
We were just talking about that too, that like, how do you react to news like that, especially when you're a new author and you have this beautiful memoir that we're going to talk about, and a story that, look, I've known you for, I guess, about 5 years because we became friends after that episode. And I love when that happens with people on Holistically Speaking. You're definitely one of my favorite people. But now you have this memoir, Unfixed, a memoir of family mystery and the currents that carry you home. And I am reading this book, and to be completely transparent with everybody, I have not finished the book because this is a story about Kimberly's life that truly is one of the stories that you want to take your time reading. And I thought I knew you, and just diving into this book is like I'm at a loss for words, and it's such a beautiful story. So I'm so glad you're here to share it, and we'll give people a recap of who you are, and then we'll dive into that. So thank you for being here, my friend. What a joy.
Thank you for just being who you are, Hilary, and I just seeing your face again and how bright and beautiful you are and generous with your words. It's just what a treat to get to spend this time with you. Thank you.
See, this is why I do this show.
Yeah.
But anyway, for those who have not been with us that long, we're going back to October of 2021. Episode 61, you were on the show, Finding Balance and Grace Through Disability. We were talking about your vestibular disorder. We'll talk a little bit about that you found out about in 2015. And from that, and just around that, one thing I wanted to do this season, in season 6, is I wanted to bring back some of the guests to see where they are today. You've built this phenomenal media platform, a storytelling platform for those with the disabilities that we don't normally see, Unfixed Media. And it's dedicated to exploring the creative and the emotional dimensions of life with those with chronic illness and disability. And I've seen this Unfixed Media grow, and then you dive into this world of writing a book, and it's not about everyone else's stories now. Now it's about Kimberly's story. And I got to ask you, like, what made you take a step back and say, now it's my turn?
Interesting question, because I actually had written the story before I started Unfixed, but I only had written it for myself. So I literally just put myself in front of my husband's computer. I didn't even have a computer at that time. The diagnosis, mal de débarquement, I experienced the symptoms of it. It began in 2015. I didn't actually even have the diagnosis until 2020. So there was this 5-year period where I was like, what the hell is happening to my life? And I lost my job, lost my friends, blah, blah, blah. So I sat down at my husband's computer and just started to write the pieces, trying to kind of reclaim the voices, my little girl's innocence, my teenager's angst, my young adult's waywardness, all of that, and try to sort out what had just happened, especially in the last 10 years of my life. So I had written it, put it away, done, and then somewhere along the line, after I had started Unfixed Media and spent 2 years developing those stories of other people, I had shared the document with my mother and my brother and a close family member, and they said, Kimberly, these stories are universal. This isn't just your story, and I think you should share it. So I thought, well, let's just share it with inner family, like inner circle people. And I started serializing it on Substack for that reason, because I thought, well, this will be accessible for them. I didn't plan on it becoming something that strangers all over the world would start reading. So it happened by accident in a lot of ways. It was not a plan, I guess is the best way to say it.
That's the best thing about life is when it's not planned. Because what is the saying? If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? But, and I love that you mentioned Substack because, by the way, you're the one that got me on Substack. You and our dear friend Gus were like, you got to get on there. You need to write. And I love that your journey was not subconsciously intentional. It was something that kind of just happened beautifully and executed in a way where you were just sharing a story on Substack. And for those who aren't familiar, this is an online newsletter. It is probably the most beautiful online space, in my opinion. It's not social media. It's very different. And being able to share pieces of you a little bit at a time, like releasing it like the old books used to be released, old chapters. What were your thoughts when you're like, publish?
Oh, I felt held in almost immediately. I didn't know where these people started coming from, but I knew within a couple chapters that I had a community of friends from around the world that were holding my hand as I began sharing. And this took 2 years. I parsed out the chapters and I was sharing it every Sunday religiously for 2 years. And I felt I never had a moment of feeling nervous about this, truly, because these beautiful souls just showed up. Almost, maybe, I don't know, maybe my dead fathers were like orchestrating this or something, because they're like, you need to be here and hold Kimberly's hand, and you need to be here and encourage her. And they're to this day still, they are some of my favorite humans on the planet. So generous with their time and their love. Some of them are also writers. Many of them are also writers. So then I started reading their work and giving and reciprocating that, and it just became this big love fest.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to say that you've done that for me as well. You've given me some beautiful guidance, and I've been a writer for a very long time, but this type of writing is a little different, for writing memoirs or teaching memoirs and whatever you want to call it in the genre of the publishing world. But there's something about just knowing that you're sharing it feels like a safe space. It really does. These are people that love to read or love to write. And it's not about likes and follows and all that stuff that really guides this world in the digital age. It's just more genuine. I don't know. What would be a word that you would use to define how that platform is different from others?
Slow is a word I often use, because people are not there for the 13-second video. At least not now or when I started. So slow is definitely a word. Genuine, absolutely. And reciprocating. It feels like there is a real reciprocation there, where if someone's taking the time to give to you through their 15 minutes of reading what chapter you read, then commenting on it, you want to give back to them. It's just only natural. Like, who's this person, and why were they so moved by what I just wrote, and what did they just write about? And it's just a natural reciprocation.
So did you actually release entire chapters every Sunday or portions?
Well, the way the book is, the way that you read it has been edited after it was serialized. So, but for the most part, yes, those were individial chapters.
Yeah, and they're shorter chapters, by the way. I mean, it's almost like a Dear Diary in a lot of ways. And you even have the Dear Diary within the Dear Diary, Dear Charlie, and we'll talk about
Dear
that.
Charlie.
Yeah, because I mean, these aren't long chapters. These are shorter chapters that really allow you to ingest and digest what the experience was for you and still continues to be, because we're always living somewhat like thinking about what happened in our life as we're growing up. But let's talk about Unfixed. Share a little bit about the story if you can. what the purpose was, what you were getting out of it. When I ask people to share the story, it sometimes can be like a quick elevator pitch if
Yeah.
it's something outside of a memoir. But a memoir, how do you define that? How can you share
Oh,
that?
well, for me, film, first of all, is my first language,
Mhm.
the visual. And so writing was not the comfortable place for me to tell this story. But what I learned as I was writing was that my body had a story to tell.
Mm.
And I had been told a story my whole life, and I had told myself a story that included who my father was, that included what I needed to feel in order to be whole in this world, physically, emotionally, mentally. And I needed to put those stories aside and write from my body. And I think that's why when people do read this book, they say, words like immersive and like they're right in there with me, because I think I really found, even though it's a slow process for me, but I found through writing a way to connect with my body and listen to that story. And she had a lot to say.
Yeah, the way you execute it and you write, and I noticed that too. And I thought this is a really interesting dynamic in your upbringing, right? You were very connected. It was it very much a self-help family, lots of meditation and things that the normal everyday kid probably wasn't surrounded by. And
Mm-mm.
there was a lot of getting in touch with emotions, getting in touch with feelings, getting in touch with your body, which I found really interesting because of what you found out in 2020 with your vestibular disorder. And
Mm-hmm.
briefly, just can you explain, just for folks that might not know what it is?
Yes, so it's also called non motion triggered oscillatory vertigo, which means, translation, that there is not an event that causes the brain to suddenly perceive solid ground as liquid, but that is what my brain did. A lot of people that have the motion triggered version come off of a cruise ship and then they never get their land legs back. So if you can experience, if you've experienced that, you probably know a little bit of what it
Mhm.
feels like. The ground just is constantly bobbing up and down. The non motion triggered people, it's usually preceded by a protracted period of panic. And literally, the neurotransmitters just go a little haywire, and the signals between the vestibular system and the brain become dysregulated.
Mm.
And so I've been living with this now since the symptoms started in 2015, so for 10 years. And I panicked. I was panicked even before it happened because of the news of my father, who I found out was not my actual
Mhm.
father. My identity was very wrapped up in him. My identity in general was wrapped up in in the people around me instead of having a sense of my own self. So it was like the rug had been pulled out from underneath me, and I kind of lost my shit, to put
Yeah.
it bluntly. I started having dizzy spells that very quickly turned into 24/7, not stop. It doesn't stop. The only way it stops is if I'm in passive motion, which is just a weird little quirk where if I'm in the car, it's gone. But then once
Right.
I'm at the stoplight, it comes back. So that's the summary of it.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, just so we can give people an idea of what it is, not leave them hanging. But to go back to the book, even, there's such an attachment and an awareness, that might be a better word. You have such an awareness of your body and how you're feeling and your mind at such an early age, only to find out later to have this vestibular disorder. It almost feels like you were groomed for it in a way. I don't know what the word would be. It's like you were so much more well receiving of it because of your
Yeah.
ability
Well,
to connect.
it's interesting you say that, because I actually think it might have also been what caused it, because those
Mm.
that have it, that is the hypervigilance. So I learned to be hypervigilant with my bodily sensations. That proprioception was very, very strong in me. And those that develop these symptoms that I have, there's two categories. There's the people like me with hypervigilance, and we start focusing on it more because we feel it. And the more we feel it, the more we feel anxious about it. And then we focus on it more. And it's this cycle that doesn't stop. Mm-hmm. And then there's the other people that are like, oh, that was weird. And then they go off to work and they forget about it. What keeps it going and what actually makes the brain essentially, as it's plastic, it changes to adapt to this. It doesn't ever go away. So I think the proprioception, even though, yes, it helped me also, I think it also was part of what caused it.
Knowing that that's something that you had then, and it could have created where you are now, would you have done anything different if you knew that?
Oh, yes, of course. But I don't think this was all trauma response. So I don't think I had the skills to know how. I think more than anything, I can just have compassion for that little girl and that young woman to go, oh man, you were just trying to survive. You thought things were scary. And so you felt like you needed to fixate on these things in order to find some sense of control in a very chaotic space. But what I do find is there's a little bit of a miracle in all of this, and that is my body gave me exactly what I needed to step out of that hypervigilance. So when we think about people with OCD, they have to go through exposure therapy to realize that thing that they're the most afraid of isn't going to kill them. Mm-hmm. Well, when the dizziness started, I was so frightened of this experience of pain and discomfort in my body. It just in disorientation, it just made me feel like I couldn't find my ground. I didn't think I could live with it. So, but it never stopped. So I was forced to learn that it's gonna be okay. And I'm living with it still 10 years later. And you know what? It's fine. It's just a background annoyance now. Some days are bad and I have to really lay down. It doesn't matter. It's not what I thought it was. And so I feel like my body really gave me exactly what I needed to be free.
I feel like my body gave me exactly what I needed to be free. Okay. I mean, I would imagine most people would like to be able to say that, even without any kind of, upset in their body. Although I think we all face upsets in our body. We're not free and void of that, right?
No.
Yeah. To talk about trauma at such a young age, to be so hypervigilant, to be so connected, was there ever a time in your youth that you wish you were just like everyone else? And I think you actually talk about that a little bit in the book, but did you ever think, I'm just not like the rest?
Oh God. Yeah. I mean, I felt like I wasn't even like the rest of my family. Yeah. I had a real sense of not belonging. I felt like I belonged to the lake that I swam in. I felt like I belonged to my dog. The non-human world I felt a belonging to, but there was definitely something in me that didn't know how to feel tethered to the human realm. And I felt that from a very, very, very young age. We can make conclusions about why. I don't really truly know. It might have just been like, well, here's a weird little anecdote aside. I just found out a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you're into astrology. I haven't really been into much of it my whole life. My chart, I have not a single fixed sign in my entire chart. I am mutable. Everything is mutable. Here I have this whole business, this whole industry called Unfixed. And I don't have one fixed sign in my entire chart, even the outer planets. Is that weird?
I don't know if it's weird or it's just like the universe just, I don't know how to take that. I mean, you just take it, right? You just sit there.
I guess I'm supposed to learn about being flexible and uncertain and mutable because, that's my journey.
Which kind of goes back to some of what you were talking about in the book about the ballet moves. Like you were very intentional about your conversation that you shared in the book about just ballet and the movements and what's
Yeah.
expected of a ballerina,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, and conversely, the discipline of ballet
Yeah.
was almost like an anchor. It gave me something in all of that freedom that I felt in my psychic space. Like, and that's why I'm always attracted to people too.
Mm.
Dave is my rock. He truly is. I love Tauruses. I love people that just ground me. You know, somebody ground me.
Somebody ground me, please.
I'm
You
water here. I'm all water.
you need to get one of those like grounding sheet companies to sponsor you.
Totally. That is such a good idea. I've looked into those. Do you have one?
I'm totally gonna send you. I'm gonna send you information. I want
Okay.
that to be your sponsor,
That is so
or
funny.
both of us. Yeah, I did.
Okay,
I was
let's
just
do
thinking
it.
about that. All right, so let's going back to the book, and if you're just kind of connecting with this Unfixed, a memoir of family mystery and the current events that carry you home. Kim Warner, this is your debut book, I guess we would call it, your memoir.
Yeah.
And I really want to talk about Charlie and your dad. And Charlie is this presence throughout the entire book. You're pretty much writing to Charlie as though it's like a dear diary. Can you give folks an idea of the dynamic between Charlie and your dad?
Well, they never knew each other, and nor did I know Charlie. I only knew my dad. Charlie, I only discovered when I turned 40 that through a DNA test that he was my biological father. My mom, it was a one night fling, and she had already, been married to my dad for multiple years. He had already been having affairs. This was sort of the time of not free love, but let's, call it sexual experimentation. And so when she came home from this musical festival and she had already thought she had been pregnant, so she didn't even think it was something to research, but she said, I want you to know that I did have sex with this man named Charlie. And he didn't have much to stand on to be upset about that because of his proclivities. And so they put it away and chose to raise me as the parents that they were to me, and very devoted. So finding out at 40 years old that Charlie was my father, and that my father, who had died when I was in high school in a car accident, had chosen to love me no matter what, without understanding whether or not he was my father. It just complicated things in my heart so much, Hilary.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just like, I had just spent decades grieving the loss of my daddy. I was a daddy's girl, and I wanted to just be like him in the world. And I started to feel like, well, am I being disloyal to him if I research who this Charlie was? Because Charlie had also died in an accident. His was a sailing accident. So both of them are dead. Both of them have a lot of mystery around their death. All I could do was make up my relationship with Charlie. So I decided to write these letters. I really felt like it was a way of becoming intimate with him through the different parts of myself that wished I could have known him. Who was the little girl that would have sat on his lap while he was playing the banjo? He was a musician, and he made film, and he was on public television. So he's the creative part, that I inherited. And I really felt like I wanted to learn about him.
Yeah.
Who is this part of me that is living on? The story continues. I feel very much like both of them are cheering me on now, but they're also very, very different. One is a father of my heart, of love that will never die, and one is much more the father of this creative exploration in life.
And I remember reading your book when your mom told you on that walk that she took you on that you said, I guess I'm just, it's a mystery. You had a statement where you mentioned that I guess I'm just a mystery, or it's a mystery.
Yeah, well, my mom was, it's a funny part because, like I said earlier, I looked to other people to sort of tell me how to feel and was very other referent. My mom said, there's a chance your father wants me to tell you this, by the way. It's not my choice, but I'm going to tell you because he wants me to. There's a chance that he's not your dad. But isn't it more interesting that you belong to the mystery? So those were her words. And I did like what I do. My trauma response is I just checked out. I said, yeah, Mom, that sounds beautiful. I do belong to the mystery. So it was a very easy thing for me to do at that time. I don't remember having any emotions around it. I don't remember talking to my father about it. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I just said, yeah, that's great. I belong to the mystery. And then my dad died 6 months later in this car accident. So it just shoved down into the deep, deep layers of my subconscious.
So do you think you belong to the mystery?
That's a great question. Yes, I do. I mean, I absolutely do. And now I can say that from a deeper sense of knowing it in my own being, not because it sounds pretty and it's a nice way to wrap a story of chaos up with a bow. But I do. I belong to the mystery. We all do. We all do.
I actually love that line in the book. I was like, oh, okay, Mom, love that. I want to belong to the mystery. And obviously under different circumstances, I mean, you're taking a walk with your mom and that gets dropped on you. You're like, how am I supposed to take that? You know, your whole world gets pulled out from under you. And then you are reliving this loss with your dad. You know, you share it in the beginning of the book and then you bring it back in that second part of the book. And it's just like, it hits you again, you know? What is it that you're hoping that this book will provide for people?
I've thought about that a lot, and it's of course when we write a memoir, I think it's important we write for the parts of ourselves that are feeling broken, and we keep that real personal and intimate. But I do think that when we do it, those themes become universal. So for me, I really want people to know that they can find peace in the storm. That they're and it's not because you're solving the storm, or it's not because you're waiting for the storm to go away, but there is peace actually within the storm. And I am living proof of that, even down to my cells, because I feel like I'm on the deck of a boat in a big freaking storm. And I didn't at first feel peace there. I felt panic, but I feel rested and content. And there's just a freedom that comes from not having a conditional sense of peace. So, and that's not special to me. That's something that all of us can do, that our nervous systems can do. You know that with your work with Havening. Our nervous systems know how to find peace no matter what. No matter what.
We mess it up.
We mess it up.
We're the ones with nervous system sitting there like, I got this, and you just keep messing it up. In the most beautiful way, I mean that. But, I find it really interesting that even as a young kid, you kind of got that. You understood yourself a little bit. Even without fully developed brain, you really kind of were tapped into some things that the everyday 10-year-old is not tapped into, you know? And it could have been kind of having parents that seem kind of like flower children in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Which definitely.
I love that. I love that. Well, again, it's called Unfixed, a memoir of family mystery and the currents that carry you home, which I imagine the currents is your time on the lake because you love the lake. Just life is a current as well.
Life is a current.
Yeah.
And the currents that I feel in my body right now. The currents
right. You're bobbing and weaving. I remember you telling me it's bobbing and weaving. Sometimes we have to go with the flow, I guess, too, right? It's going with the flow.
It is about going with the flow.
All right. I want to play a little game with you in the time we have. This is the Brain Candy game, just a rapid fire. I think we did this the first time. It's grown since then. But I'm just going to throw out one word, come back with the first word that comes to mind. Okay? All right, here we go. Body.
Peace.
Memoir.
Unfixed.
Community.
Heartfelt friendship.
Slow.
Kind.
Trauma.
Spaciousness.
Polarity.
Inevitable.
Genuine.
Substack.
This is not endorsed by Substack, nor is it endorsed by the grounding company that I'm talking about.
But check back with those later, because
but
it
we
might.
will. Right. Unfixed.
Gratitude.
Charlie.
Well, it's not one word, but it's just, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's okay. Yes, now I have an explicit rating. Amazing.
You can bleep that out.
It took 31 minutes and 47 seconds to get there, but we got there. No, I'm
I'm
leaving that in.
I'm not the first to
No,
do. Okay.
jeez. This isn't a Bible show. What are you kidding? All right. And then the last word is mystery.
Oh. Home.
Yeah. Good stuff. Love it. Okay. And on that note, now I have the hug it out method. And one thing I love asking guests that I'm starting to do in this season is, hug it out is an acronym for in the healing. We either have the humor, understanding, or the gratitude. Hopefully all three for you to hug it out. With that being said, of the humor and the understanding and the gratitude, which one do you feel that you closely associate with? Which way would you hug it out?
Gratitude. Yeah. That's my center.
Yeah.
And that's such an easy one to tap into too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Although I will say you have a little bit of humor.
And that's
understanding. It's all there.
Wisconsin dork is always nearby.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Are there any last words you want to share with folks?
No, thank you, Hilary. This has just been so fun. And I'm excited for you to revisit these other voices, to be able to check in 5 years later and hear how people are doing is really special, because a lot can happen in 5 years.
As we can see.
Yeah.
5 years ago, we were not talking about a memoir and a book and being the editor's pick for Publishers Weekly, or who knows what's next. All I know is that if you're coming this way, there better be a book signing, and I just need to give you a big hug, because I just love the relationship and the friendship that we've built. So thank you for giving me that gift. I appreciate that. And any final thoughts?
Thank you. Here I'm returning to gratitude. That's it.
I will take it. And then I will share it again. Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
This book is going to change lives. It's already changing mine. Unfixed, a memoir of family, mystery, and the currents that carry you home, by my dear friend, Kimberly Warner. You sat in on this conversation. You saw what she's about. It's kind of hard to think that it won't change your life. And it's not just Kimberly's story. Like we shared during this conversation, it's all of our stories in some way. So you can find the book in the Book Nook library on the HIListically Speaking podcast page. Also, it'll be right here in the notes of the podcast. And of course, get in touch with Kimberly. If you have a moment, go back and even tune in and listen to episode 61 and get to know Kimberly a little more. And listen, if this podcast episode touched, moved, and inspired you in any way, consider paying it forward, leaving a thoughtful response. I read them all. I want to hear from you. I want you to be a part of this show just as much as my guests are. This is a collective, and it means a lot when we can be together here and hug it out with ourselves, but also share that as a collective. And we talked a little bit about havening techniques. If you're interested in learning more about this neuroscience-based approach that changes the brain, that puts the healing where it belongs, which is in your hands, or if you're looking to potentially level up and get trained in this modality and be certified, just reach out to me. I'm happy to share more with you about that. You can join my free Havening happy hours every month. I have a link to that in the notes of this podcast as well, or learn more about the training, and I'd be happy to show you more about that. As always, I want to give a shout out to my dear friend Lipbone Redding for always providing the beautiful music in this podcast, week after week, year after year since day one. And I leave you with this. And this is something we discussed during this conversation, and I hope you believe this, what Kimberly shares in the book, which is you belong to the mystery. We all belong to the mystery. We're part of this beautiful mystery of life. And part of that is you knowing that anytime, anywhere, that you can hug it out with yourself and be kind to your mind. So on that note, remember, I love you, I believe in you, and I'm sending hugs your way. Be well.